You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Vanazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody, that rockin' tune means it's time once again to rock out with the option block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, via the bastion, the font of options info known as theoptionsinsider.com. If you go there every day, hey, ballyhoo to you. We love you. If you haven't been there in a while, you just mainline the radio. We still like you. If you want to head on over to the website, I wouldn't hold it against you. A lot of fun stuff there. I know if you got to read with your eyes, it's kind of hard versus listening with your ears. But if you can handle that, a lot of good content up there for you. Breaking news on the options market, all sorts of fun stuff. We always got tons of plans to overhaul it. Websites are never done. So we got ideas. If you have ideas what you'd like to see on the website, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you guys. Of course, you can always mainline the audio if you don't want to be bothered with the online stuff. So you want to mainline the audio, your iTunes, your TuneIns, your Stitchers, all that fun stuff. Pretty much you name your platform of choice. We're there. If we're not, hit us up. Let us know. And while you're there listening on your platform of choice, write us a review if you are so inclined. If you like what you hear, especially, maybe not these other guys, but if you like me, that's fine, cool, write it up. If not, chill out. We'll blame the other guys for it. Nice little reviews in those little stores of choice. We don't really read those on the show, but they're always fun to see. And if you have a question, of course, hit us up the old-fashioned way. A lot faster ways to get to us than leaving a review in iTunes. We see those every few months or so. So if you got a timely question, or a lot of you guys do, hit us up. Speaking of timely, Mixlr is where the live chat is. If you want to be uber timely, you can join us every Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, via Mixlr, Mixlr. And joining me on the old program today, I got an order of, let's go in order of proximity. So let's go out first to a scenic stop in lovely St. Charles, where we are joined by Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Wealth Advisors. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program. And where do you stand, to continue our debate before the show, where do you stand on the endless debate that is Leprechauns v. Trolls, sir?
I'll go with the Trolls. I think, but then again, we have a lot of Irish fans, I guess. So, the heck with it. I'm going with Trolls. I'm sticking to my gut. Trolls all the way.
I think Trolls are big, but Leprechauns have magic, so you never know. Size, it's the old brawn versus finesse and subtlety and magic and pots of gold. So they could throw the gold at the Troll. You never know. Drop it from the rainbow. That could be devastating. All right, we're also joined. Show's just started. We're already getting crazy. And we're also joined by the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi, from some place they call Maine. Never been to it, never heard of it. From also via way of OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the show. And the old debate, Leprechauns versus Trolls, sir. Who wins?
I think the Leprechauns are much nastier than the Trolls, at least the Trolls in 2017. That's what I'm saying, and I'm sticking by it.
Interesting. If you believe that American God show, Leprechauns are not just from Ireland; they're in Mexico and everything else. So Leprechauns all over the global. Who knew? A global phenomenon known as Leprechauns. Trolls, I don't know. I think they live under bridges, so maybe they're a little bit more geographically limited. Let us know your votes. Heated debate: Trolls versus Leprechauns. Don't ask how that got started. It's a crazy story. Meanwhile, let's keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. I promise no more mythological creatures, at least for the next 5 minutes or so. I can't promise for the whole show. because we love ourselves some creatures, but at least not the rest of 5 minutes. I give you 5 minutes, so if you can hang out there, we'll dive into what's moving the market today. And most of the major indices kind of all over the place a little bit. You got S&P is kind of the Goldilocks, kind of the just right, pretty much unched on the day, slightly to the upside. Dow finishing the day up strong, nearly up 0.5%. The Qs, on the other hand, on the other side, taking the other side of that dark mirror, off about 0.5%, right around that level there as well. And all this back and forth means a little bit of green on the old VIX screen, VIX cash hovering right around that 10.5 level. If it dipping down about 10.25, getting as high as about almost 10.85 today. So a little range out there in the old VIX cash, flirting with getting into the stronger double digits. So we shall see. Again, we got a whole week to see how my prognostication comes to pass there in the old vol views. I wasn't feeling the end of the day. I think I said 975. Rock Lobster, of course, carping me. I think going like 1005, something like that. So we shall see how that plays out. Meanwhile, though, let's dive into what caught our collective eyes today. Let's start in order again. Let's go out to St. Charles, Uncle Mike, while you're fiendishly working out on your spreadsheets the pros and cons of leprechauns and trolls. Aside from that, what else caught your eye in today's activity, sir?
Yeah, the pair trade of trading the Mexican leprechaun versus the British leprechaun. What can we do with that? You're right. There really was not a ton of movement within the S&P today. I mean, it was up a little bit, it was down a little bit, but overall, we're kind of right back where we started. A few things that are catching my eye. Oil actually caught a little bit of a bid today. Oil's up about a little over 1%. We're back over the 50 handle on oil. But aside from that, I mean, Boeing had another big day today. Boeing's just been on fire lately. Excuse me. And in the tech world, looks like things went down a little bit. So that's kind of what's happening in my world of what's lighting up the tape. I know the big fruit company that everyone always asks me about. I feel like one of those special agents in a movie. After he quits being a special agent for about 4 or 5 years or so, they always want him to come back. And even though I haven't traded Apple in 4 or 5 years or so, people still talk about and want me to come back to the Apple world of where I once was. But still looking at it, still just trading some covered calls on it. Nothing like it was back in the day. But with Apple earnings coming up, it was down 65 cents on the day. Just excited to see where that goes this week after earnings as well. Silver's quietly rallying again. It's not quite at the 16 handle again, at least in SLV, but it is getting much closer. But overall, not a ton of movement today in the world of Uncle Mike. But I'm kind of expecting that to change as the week goes on.
And while you're doing that, I was just putting together a scintillating poll for our listeners who are listening live. A nice. I'll let them chime in on their own version of leprechauns versus trolls. But first, I shall toss it over to the Rock Lobster while I finish writing this bad boy. Mr. Rock Lobster, what caught your eye in today's activity, sir?
Maybe it's the lack of activity. The biggest thing that caught my eye was kind of the somewhat return to reality for Amazon, although that's, it never has stopped. But Amazon was down almost $100 from its short-term highs, I believe, a week ago. Had you have guessed that, 1081.71, and today it's trading 987. So you could have picked yourself up some puts. I guess almost any put would have paid at this point with the stock down $100. But and Costco flying. Costco's up 562 today. So I think some reality has, it's not that Amazon is not a great company, but at some point things get pretty expensive and other things get pretty cheap. And Costco, something we looked at early in our chat room this morning as an idea. So it worked out fine. Of course, I was trying to buy straddles and I didn't get filled. But I'll let that go. But that was the idea. But anyway, so at that, I'm just guessing. I'm guessing, but maybe not. That we're kind of sort of stuck here in the I love technology, but I think it certainly runs far and hard right now, and it's you need a reason for something to rally, and from here we'll see what happens. So, but there's Nvidia coming out, Apple coming out, of course, which could drive things higher. So let's see if we can get something kind of. Again, I think tech is going to have kind of a sleepy summer, maybe even a little bit of a correction. Who knows? Because at least now you need better news. And Apple's coming and Nvidia's coming. So I think the last part really would be a few chip makers coming out. But for the most part, the earnings have been pretty good in technology. I think the oil companies have surprised a little bit. The banks were pretty good. Commodity prices are kicking up a little bit. So it's one of those things where, maybe a little sector rotation, and the SPX, like you said, doesn't move very much because half the stocks are going up, half the stocks are going down, and VIX just sits there. And what were we up 10 cents today? We're up 10 cents to 10.39. And I believe I split the difference and called 10.25 on VIX for the Friday prognostication.
If that's what you want to call it, splitting the difference, that nuanced term. Others may have more derogatory terms for it, but I shall lie to
like carping?
So perhaps. That's where I like to go first. So I'll let you two carp me. You scumbags in the back of the pit there saying with. You guys never could stand you guys. I'm with you on the Amazon Costco thing. We talked about this on the show. I think it was a few weeks ago, back when more longer than that now, when that Whole Foods deal was first announced. The stocks just took such a drubbing, particularly Costco, which has kind of always been a little bit of its own beast, kind of on its own island, got a membership program, everything else like that, and not really playing so much in the Whole Foods game. Some of it, there is some overlap, obviously, but they were just annihilating it. And meanwhile, this rally ho on Amazon, it didn't really make a heck of a lot of sense. And maybe now you're right. Maybe saner, cooler, calmer heads are prevailing. By the way, you said you work in Costco straddles, or were those Amazon?
I was trying to buy Costco. My big idea this morning was buying slightly in the money Costco straddles, so long a little delta, and trying to finance with some sort of Amazon fly, but I never got the long side on, so I never put the fly on either. So that was the big idea for today, kind of a premium neutral, long contract, juice for free type of special trade. It was a great idea, but I'm such a greedy guy that I was holding. When you're trying to bid for a straddle, a long delta straddle, and nobody's even sniffing your bid, that's probably a sign you should just go pay the offer and suck it up and do it. So, and then I watched Costco go up $3.50.
There you go. Get greedy. Pigs get fed. Hogs get slaughtered. But it is interesting you mentioned that, because it is a challenge sometimes. And the old saying, do the hard leg first. Anyone can go out and sell. Anyone can go out and short Amazon. That's the easy part. The hard part is, of course, getting the long straddle at a price that's not lifting the offer. Clearly, that was a bridge too far today for the Rock Lobster. We'll keep an eye on his Costco versus Amazon trade. I got a feeling that trade hasn't wrung its last little wrinkle out yet. I think there's more to come on that trade. Speaking of other trades that are popping off, and speaking of polls, I'd like to ask you guys questions too. We did, by the way, post a very fun poll for all of you out there, asking you right now: Leprechauns versus Trolls, who wins? Only live, only during the show, next hour or two. So listen after the fact. You're out. We gave you questions: Leprechauns clearly win, or Trolls, you fool, or what the heck is this, pretty much, or I prefer unicorns. So far, I prefer unicorns, trashing it, 67%. So no love for love for Trolls or Leprechauns, apparently, from those of you out there who aren't just completely dumbfounded by what the heck's going on. All right, let's move on to the actual action, the actual polls that were catching our eye and that we were asking you today. Of course, Uncle Mike alluded to his favorite holding back in the days of old, a few years back, when Apple was flirting with 700 and he was loving himself some AAPL. These days, not so much. He's talked about his innovation index out there before, how it needs to get a little bit higher before he can really dive back in. That said, they are one of the big names popping off this week. Couple buzz-heavy names coming off this week. The old Tesla firing off as well. Apple closing today about 148.85, so shy of 150, off about right around 0.5% or so. So kind of in a little bit of a, just a little bit of a slight slide today. Nothing huge out there in Apple. Everyone obviously playing, waiting and seeing. They're after the bell tomorrow. And they were pricing in right around $6, so right around 4%. So we asked you guys, what do you think? $6 for Apple. Can they do it? Is that cheap or is it pricey? And we also said, so we got 4 choices. Cheap, pricey, seems fair, or I'm just done. I can't stand Apple. Mr. Uncle Mike, we'll let you go first as you're our Apple devotee here. What you think? What's your feel? And what do you think our audience is feeling?
My feel is that it's a little bit cheap, actually. I know kind of the theme for earnings lately has been it's been more favoring the straddle sellers, but I would say $6 is a little bit cheap for this one. I know that we actually, in the triple income strategy, we actually own Apple, and we own the 160 covered calls on at this point for August. But I think they're going to move a little bit more than that, just because just at least a week or so ago, at least in the option world, there was some pretty decent premium at the 160 level. So I have a hard time believing $6 is going to win the ball game as a straddle seller.
Interesting, Mr. Rock Lobster, degenerate premium seller that you are, or sometimes juice buyer if you can get it for free. What are you feeling? What do you think our audience is feeling out there in good old Apple?
What the audience is feeling? I think they're gonna like this $6. They're gonna think it's cheap, and I think it's cheap. And guys in my chat room thought it was relatively cheap. So that's what it says.
That's what it says, huh? Well, you're right. The premium buyers, both of you guys actually, the premium buyers have been leading the day in all of our polls and our pop quizzes here these days and our questions of the week. Everyone leaning long premium these days, which is kind of interesting. About a third saying $6 is cheap. I want to buy me some of that. 27% saying seems just about right. Goldilocks. So probably going to sit on the fence, not really do a lot. About a quarter, a little bit less, 24% saying $6 is rich. Blast that bad boy away. And a surprisingly small amount, only 16% saying they can't stand Apple. So maybe the Apple haters have moved on. We shall see. We shall get to that one. Of course, tomorrow is when that one pops off after the bell. We have no show. Unfortunately, I would love to do that one. Speaking of names that are also popping off a little bit later this week, we also got another name that just you can't mention it. People just lose their minds. They love it. They hate it. Good old Tesla. They're coming off after the bell on Wednesday. They closed today 323.5 right about. Taking it on the chin a little bit today, off about 3.5%. Maybe the market not liking the grand unveil of the Model 3, or who knows what's driving. This name is so driven by hype and the latest tweet that you never know what's driving it up and down any given day. That said, they're pricing in a little over $22, about 22.5 out there on that straddle. So right around 7%. I don't have a poll for this one. I'd just be curious to get your thoughts. We'll probably have one later in the week when we get a little closer to Tesla earnings. What are your thoughts, Mr. Rocklops? And also, what are your hardcores in the chat saying in terms of Tesla? Are they liking 7%? Does that seem cheap? This name did 3.5% today, so who knows? Maybe it is a little cheap.
I think it's a little cheap, but again, it's still a big number. Of course, I'm looking for ways to cheapen that, but yes, there's expectations now are piled so enormous on. Has Tesla actually ever rallied on earnings? I think maybe I was going back and doing a little historical, and I'm trying to think if it ever has. I think maybe once they said they made $1 and everybody lost their mind. I didn't think they didn't know quite what to do on it. So yeah, okay. The last couple cycles, they certainly haven't made a whole lot of money. So are on earnings. Yeah, let's see. They aided on the last 3 earnings. The last 4 earnings, it's been down every time within 1 week of the cycle, of the earnings cycle. So,
what we got to do? We got to bring on like an Ophir or a Matt Amberson over the ORATs there and have them do some back tests for us and see how that performs. So I know they like their earnings trades. In fact, I think we got one of Ophir's. Someone asked us about a little bit later. We can maybe break down. I think it was in Facebook. But yeah, this one I gotta say I'm kind of leaning the same way. I mean, given the fact just today, random Monday, and they're selling off 3.5%. This name has been shown to move. Perhaps, who knows? Perhaps it is the new Widowmaker taking the title from Netflix. I know, Uncle Mike, you don't like playing some of these crazier names, but if I were to ask you your thoughts here, which let's pretend I am, because I am, if I were to ask you your thoughts on a roughly 7% straddle for Tesla, what do you think? Cheap, expensive, Goldilocks? What are you thinking?
Well, let's pretend of what my answer would be if I were pretended to ask that question. My pretend answer would actually be, I think that's a little bit cheap. I could see a lot of movement on this one, and yeah, I'm kind of with Andrew in that it's earnings represent reality, and when reality isn't that good, stocks will go down. But the good news is that when you have a CEO like that, he can make it go up again by just saying something, making something and making a good press release or whatever it is he does, and it'll go back up.
I will say one thing is not going to go back up, not getting any love. Trolls. No love for trolls. 0% love for trolls right now. 29% saying leprechauns, 28% saying unicorns, and only 43% saying, what the heck is this? They're completely surprised, dumbfounded, not knowing what to do. We'll keep tabs on that hot breaking poll for you listeners, but we're just talking Tesla, so we can't stop there. Let's keep on rolling into some weird stuff, right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show we track down for you so you don't have to. The weird, the wild, the whimsical, the just outrageous paper that is lighting up. We were just talking about Tesla a minute ago. Let's stay on that tip. You guys have an endless hunger for all things Tesla, particularly the weird paper, and not much weirder than these catastrophe puts that continue to trade in fairly large size. Yes, I'm talking about these Jan 2019 50 puts, 5-0. So a good $270 off of where we are trading right now, listeners, before these bad boys even start to peak at going in the money. Yes, they are still the size position out there, and they added another 309 contracts today. So all you asking, are these things really still trading? Yes, they are, to a ridiculous degree. Also a 40 lot of the doubles, so maybe a little 1x2 going up there. And these things are not exactly free. They're about $1.10. So getting 300 of those, it's not exactly. I mean, if you're selling them, people have contacted us saying, "Oh my God, I got to sell these," but you're still sitting on that for over a year and almost a year and a half. And on top of that, it's $1.10. So I mean, it's crazy either way you cut it. Open interest 28,586. For all of you guys asking us your thoughts on why the hell these things are trading, what the heck are they? You got some thoughts on those you've shared with us. We'll get to some of those in the mail block in a little bit, but weird. Yeah, just weird stuff, and they continue to print. So yeah, your guess is as good as ours. Oh, also, if you're wondering, a little bit closer to home, the 20 puts in 2018, they did not trade. So there's a limit to how much crazy madness they'll put on today, and apparently that limit was the 50 strike, but not the 20 strike. All right, let's move on to some of the other paper that was catching our eye today, the weird paper. This one is a bit of a weird one as well. We saw Altria Group, ticker symbol MO, M-O, closing today right around $65, off about $2 or about 3% on the day. So the name that does about 10,000 contracts a day. Today doing about 4x that, a little over 40,000. Pretty much even, 1-to-1. Puts over calls. And what caught our eye out here was interesting. Someone apparently perhaps deciding to draw a little bit of a line in the sand here at the 62 half level and doing it for a decent amount of size. Like I said, this name does about 10,000 contracts a day. So about a third of their ADV going up, a little more than that in one trade out here. It was the set monthlies, not the weeklies, 62 half puts. Going up a couple of blocks to start our day. Starting off the day right about 3,000 and change. Paper selling two big blocks, 1,800 and 1,500. The 1,800 lot for about 98 cents. The 1,500 size for about $1.11 actually on splits. As the day went on, a couple thousand more piling into the tune of about 5,500. It's about half, a little over half their ADV going up in this one trade. So pretty sizable stuff. Open interest only 1,500 contracts. So clearly open in paper here. Clearly someone pretty aggressively coming in to really decide, hey, I want to draw myself a little bit of a line in the sand here, which has been kind of interesting because if you've watched the paper on this name, this thing's had, shall we say, a turbulent couple of days. They had earnings a couple of days ago, back on the 27th. They closed going into their earnings right around $74. Shall we say they're a wee bit less than that now? They've been taken on the chin ever since. They dropped the next day on the 28th. They got as low as 60.01. So these puts were actually in the money briefly there on the 28th. And then today, of course, dipping as low intraday as about 64.33. So a little bit calmer, cooler heads prevailing today. But still, these puts are perhaps not quite as out of the money, not quite as far from concern and worry as they may appear on first blush. And looking back over the past year, this last week or so is not vacillation notwithstanding. This thing's had an interesting range. It has flirted with that 60 level before, getting close to it a couple of times back in November. It hit about 61, and back in early October, it hit about 60 and a half, almost there too. So it has flirted with it. It's always rebounded ever since, like I said, getting as high as recently about 77 and change out there. So this thing was looking pretty good until earnings kind of driving it way down. Our friend here, though, Mr. Rock Lobster, deciding, I guess, that that 62.5 line is not that scary. What say you, sir, about our friend here drawing that nice big line in the sand there, saying this far and no farther in Altria on the 62.5s in September?
You know what? This came up in our chat room, and actually for a while it wasn't tradable. Because the government said they're going to make cigarette makers put less nicotine in so they're not addictive anymore. And all the stocks just fell apart.
Don't they know that's their entire business model? That's what they do?
I'm sure they're not clear on the concept, but I'm also thinking if there isn't enough nicotine in them, wouldn't that mean people are going to smoke more cigarettes because they can't get what they want out of one?
That's true. If you're already hooked, that's not going to help you.
So, anyway, I think that was prior. Also, if you look at what's the other, Philip Moore, MO, and Altria, but there's also what's the other one? What is it? PM? Yeah, Philip Morris, right? There was another. I thought we had another pretty good. There was another cigarette company meltdown too as well. So, I just thought that it was. The options were so insanely illiquid at that point; it was hard to. They were hard to trade. So I don't think the line in the sand idea actually is a bad put to sell if they're indeed selling it. Or they're selling it, buying puts and buying stock. It's always hard sometimes to really see what's going on. But it looks like they just crushed the bid and they want to own the stock down there. So. What the heck?
Yeah, what the heck? What the heck exactly? While you were busy working your Costco straddles, the puts were getting away from you because they were so juicy. But the government saying no. I guess that's a boon for nicotine patch makers, right? So go find some of them and slap about 10 patches on your arm, and I guess you're good to go. Interesting stuff always in that sector. We don't hit on the smoking provider sector too often these days here on the show. We like our cheapy biotechs, and we got one of those for you today. Not so cheap, but it's in the biotech pharmaceutical realm. We've got Pantheon NV, ticker symbol PTHN, closing today right about $35, pretty much unched on the day. Not familiar with this one. They are a provider of outsourced pharmaceutical development and manufacturing services. So out there in the biotech, even though it gets, like I said, $35, so not quite as cheap as some of our names we talk about here. This name does about 1,200 contracts a day, doing about 25,000 today, 290 to 1 puts over calls. Yes, 25,233 puts, 87 calls. So we dove immediately into those calls to see exactly what those 87 contracts were about. Now, if you like people drawing big lines on the sand or perhaps closing out some puts, you like people hitting bids and puts, we got you covered here with these Pantheon puts to the tune of the Jan 35s. That's what caught our eye today. Paper coming in and just whacking the bid almost 25,000 times, 24,000 and change, doing it for 80 cents. bam, right on the bid. No sooner did they do that than a little bit later they're bid up because they went out $1 at $1.05. So there's a buck bid lurking out there somewhere. I'm sure our friend there really appreciates that. This open interest is about 26, a little over 26,000. So there is the potential that this is someone perhaps giving up the ghost here on some downside puts, maybe exiting a position, not needing their hedge anymore. Or it is possible they decided, you know what, I really like this level. I like it so much, I'm going to double down on this bad boy. Let's dig into a recent chart here of this name. And as you might expect for some of these biotech charts, a little crazy. You can see the big gaps there that tend to occur somehow in conjunction with earnings. I'm not sure how that must be a correlation there somehow. We'll have to figure that out, that deep analysis. But this one, once again, popping off during earnings last time back in May when it was trading about $26, and then it gapped up all the way to about 34, 35, and it was floating right around there during earnings. As we all know, these pharmaceutical names have a tendency to gap based off announcements from the FDA and everything like that. So this is not an unusual chart. What is unusual is actually it's been kind of placid, kind of tranquil over the past, pretty much the past month or so, hovering around about almost exactly around $35, not really moving. Maybe there is some other corporate action or something else going on here that kind of locked it around this 35 level. Either way, our friend here clearly seems comfortable blasting out what are effectively at the money puts here and doing it about 25,000 times. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, what say you about all this, about the unusually tranquil nature of Pantheon in the last few months or so, as well as our friend here? I think he's doubling down. He's closing. What you feeling here, sir?
You know what's amazing is the impunity with which people could sell puts in biotechy-like stocks. Don't you think so? Don't you think they just well, it's okay. We're gonna trade them and we're gonna be okay and blah 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 blah. However, what I can't figure out is nothing makes. I'm still trying to figure out how. Because if they close these on the bid, what was the other side on this? That means they sold them to close, so that means they bought them at some point, and I guess they must have had some FDA something or other, and the stock is up, a pretty huge amount, right? So how if they were long those puts, isn't that kind of a nasty put to be long?
Yeah, they're kind of wearing them on that one. I'm assuming they got some stock in their back pocket somewhere that they're smiling on. Because you're right, if they were just straight up on these puts, then they're not happy campers right now. But yeah, it's an odd strike too. 35s, it wasn't really trading there until not that long ago. So yeah, all sorts of weird stuff going on with this name. Like I said, today's the paper going up today. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of just been sitting here on this OI for quite some time. So yeah, weird one all around. I get the inclination that this is someone perhaps getting the heck out of Dodge. Maybe they're unwinding an equity position. They don't need the hedge anymore. I get the feeling it's somewhere along those lines. But again, with these funky biotechs and this funky kind of gapping paper that they have out there, you kind of never really know for sure. By the way, if you're wondering where those 87 calls went up, they all went up in Jan as well. 75 of the 40s and 12 of the 35. So all the paper today in Pantheon, all of it, was in January. Not a single one lot even in Aug or anything else like that. So there you go. Pretty locked down in the Jan. It's also worth noting there are 26,000 of the 30 puts open as well. So perhaps a vertical went up there at one time, and someone perhaps deciding that to get a little bit of discretion. Also, the 40s are open, so perhaps there is a bit of a risk reversal there, Mr. Rocklop. So you getting that feeling now, perhaps? So looking at the open interest and the other strikes, perhaps there's a risk reversal there, and someone just deciding to take off the at-the-money leg?
Yeah, it looks like one of those things where, okay, the stock gapped. I just saw a huge print of volume on the day that it gapped, and then somebody had this really great idea, and now all of a sudden they thought better of it, and they're just going to close the 35 puts. And it almost looks like they bought the 35 puts for 95 cents, and they're closing them for 80. Maybe they're just. It's a little too close. It's a little too close for comfort for them to actually hold that strike. And they're just going to hold on to the 40-30 and just see what happens. So it's possible because that 30-40 combination traded for 15 cents. They're out of the 35 puts for 15 cents. Not quite sure which way the wind is blowing it on those, but it did look like they sold at close today. So I'm just thinking it just feels like a double take, as in, okay, I have this on. Well, maybe I don't like it as much as I thought, a couple of weeks ago, because there's almost been zero movement since May. So it's either been bought out or something along those lines that happened. So, and somebody's just taking that 35 and just slinking away with which looks like a 15-cent loss.
You probably got those short legs out there. He's not closing those, you notice. Letting those bad boys roll a little bit. The short calls, probably short puts. Why would you close the short leg? Just close out the long legs and let the rest kind of ride. Maybe make back your 15 cents. It's all the magic, the voodoo of the short premium, Mr. Rock Lobster. Either way, interesting stuff. Love these biotechs. They always are great fodder for our option block segment. But you know what? It's Monday. Means it's time for you guys to take the reins with a little bit of the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Mail Block. Like the man said, this is the portion where you guys dictate what the heck we talk about with questions, comments, insights, insults to the Rock Lobster, all that fun stuff. Hit us up, social media, the website, the mobile app, live chat, however you want to reach out to us. Even email, old-fashioned email, questions@theoptionsinsider.com. All of that works. And you, too, can be part of the endless party that is the Option Block. Let's, of course, I'll give you a quick call back here. Mr. Rock Lobster, who do you think is winning our poll? Leprechauns or Trolls?
You know what? I'm just going to go with the Troll movie because that's what everybody just saw recently. So I'm just going with the Trolls. I'm going Trolls.
Mr. Uncle Mike, same question to you, sir. Leprechauns, Trolls, or there's a dark horse unicorn sneaking in there? Uh-oh, Uncle Mike, he is gone.
He muted himself. He's
pulled.
Oh, my gosh. Oh. Oh, man. I'm so...
I feel umbrage for you.
What I just did. I gotta go with unicorns. I'm gonna honor my daughter because I know she likes unicorns. I'm gonna think we got some unicorns out there.
Apparently we got the ladies in the audience because unicorns, I threw them in as a dark horse. I said you had choices. Leprechauns clearly win. Trolls, you fool. What? Or I prefer unicorns. Right now, what winning with 43%. I feel you. 29% going for leprechauns. 28% for unicorns. It's a close race. You got about an hour or so left. Trolls, you fool. Getting no love. No love for Trolls. So Mr. Rock Lobster, apparently that movie did not resonate because Trolls getting no love on the endless battleground that is Leprechauns v. Trolls. Let's move on to update you on some of our other stuff right now. Still about a third saying $6 is cheap for the Apple Straddle. We'll see how that evolves going into the number tomorrow. We were talking earlier about the Tesla puts, those 2019 50 catastrophe puts. You guys, as always, have some thoughts on that. Shawn St.Peter says, I think someone would buy those puts like a life insurance policy. If for any reason something happened to Elon Musk, Tesla could drop like a stone. Elon is the reason they are successful, and without him, I'm not sure they could make it. Well, it's inarguable. A lot of his personal brand is tied up in the Tesla brand. That's been by design. Seems to have been working for both of them. So I could see that. That's kind of analogous to the argument where other people make of it's effectively an insurance policy on you buy a Model S or you buy one of their cars. You worry about the car company going to zero. You pick up some of these, throw them in your back pocket for a rainy day. Oh, no, Tesla's gone, but I got my puts and I got a car, so I'm good. So I don't know. Mr. Rock Lobster, Uncle Mike, you guys buying this? This is a life insurance policy?
It's a morbid one.
Yeah. I would say that. Well, what life insurance policy isn't morbid?
I guess so. So you should remember that it's all. Remember that the propeller head, tin hat people that Osama bin Laden bought puts and then he launched the airplanes into the World Trade Center. I don't know. It kind of smacks of that a little bit. So, but I don't think it's just an Elon put trade. But I would have to say that the company would take a pretty serious haircut, because that guy seems to come up with massive massive good ideas like everybody else, just blinks at this point. So there's got to be a lot of value there on just having that guy alone. I think Apple should buy Tesla just to get Elon Musk in the driver's seat.
Maybe that's what that is. Maybe these are the company who wrote the key man policy for Tesla on Elon Musk. They're hedging their own risk with these 50 puts, and they continue to do it every day, 300 at a time for some reason.
Now, that's an interesting thing, a life insurance policy being used with puts to insure a life insurance policy. Is there anything that options can't do?
It's magic. It's gold.
It's magic. And think about it this way, because they're getting all the policy premiums. I just wonder how much they're spending on the Tesla puts. That's why they're buying the cheapy puts and not the expensive
Still 28,000 of them for $1 and change. It adds up over time. I'm guessing that policy was probably pretty rich. They got some cash to spend. And I guess they figure they can get under the radar doing 50, a couple hundred at a time, and no one's going to notice. Except we found out about them. Sneaky rascals. We saw them. Brian Collamer also saying here, he's been keeping an eye on these, saying, I see, or maybe he saw 950 of these Jan catastrophe puts going up for a $1.10 marked spread. The market was 103 at 125. The OI was 28,783. This is from July 26, so late last week. I'll have to go back and dig up. So someone's spreading. Maybe that's that 40 lot I mentioned earlier of the doubles, 55 puts. Maybe people are starting to leg into these doing 1x2s. They know there's a reliable flow of paper there, so you can probably find a bid if you need to leg into something else. Maybe people are wising up to that and using these Tesla catastrophe puts as a bit of a leg for something else, a jumping off board, if you will. Maybe Mr. Rocklopson will somehow work them into his long Costco straddle strategy. We shall find out forthwith. All right, moving on. Matthew Therian, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Either way, he asks us, I would be interested to see the guys, I guess that's us, we're the guys, discuss this strategy. And he includes a link to a trade in Facebook that our buddy Ophir there put up. It was, I think, right before earnings he announced this. Ophir does all that back testing stuff. He says he had an advanced option trade in Facebook, which the timing, so I'll walk through some of the salient points for you guys. He said he set up the trade, I think it was 6 days before. He wants to trade it 6 days before earnings, so in one of these pre-earnings trades for Facebook. He said he wanted to buy the at-the-money straddle with a 30-day expiration, so buy the longer-term straddle, sell an at-the-money straddle with a 7-day expiration or somewhere in that time frame. So it's important. He wanted both these straddles to have expirations after earnings. So you got some of the earnings juice in there, but they're not pure earnings plays. And then 25, he says, use a 25% stop loss. So if it goes bad, you can protect against real large losses. According to him, his idea was to own the straddle with a longer expiration and sell the straddle with a closer expiration, benefit from time decay in the shorter term options. And what's interesting about this is obviously they have a back tester, so they can back test this stuff. And he went and back tested this because this is not a trade that would immediately jump out at you. Long time spreads with straddles going into an earnings announcement like this. It would seem maybe counterintuitive to a lot of things we've talked about before about being long premium. This is, of course, net short gamma. Not a ton, because you got pretty close term options there, but still, you're going to be net short gamma on this bad boy, particularly as you get closer to the event. But according to the back test, this time spread works about almost 92% of the time. So won 11 times, lost once, so an 80.5% return over the last 3 years, 12 earnings cycles. They traded it. If you look a little closer, they said in the last year, it's won pretty much 4 out of 4 times. So 100% win-loss record there. And again, that's trading over just a couple of weeks. He says if you try to annualize that, of course, this is only just a couple of weeks, but if you annualize that, it gets much higher. So interesting stuff. This is kind of interesting. This is not a strategy will leap out to you. Mr. Rocklopster, this is kind of almost a little bit contrary to what your favorite trade, which is to buy that premium a little bit farther out. You like to go like 3 weeks ahead of the event, 2.5, 3 weeks. He's talking 6 days. The important thing is you don't ride this through expiration. This is a similar strategy from that sense. You close everything out the day before expiration. I'll make sure I covered that. Yeah, close everything out the day before expiration, so you don't have the event. According to him, it has no direction risk either. I can maybe argue that a little bit because there's a little short gamma there, but still, it's interesting stuff. Mr. Rock Lobster, what say you to this long 30-day straddle, short weekly 7-day straddle? Ride that for a bit and then close it out. I mean, on paper, you wouldn't think that would work because you're not getting a lot of decay out of that front month or that front week contract, but it looks like here, with their numbers at least, it seems to work.
Well, once again, the devil's in the details on this type of trade. So it is similar sort of to the trades weird, but this is actually, I would say, this is a play on time spread decay into earnings. Well, obviously, right? But the difference is he's selling kind of the leakiest options there are, which are the 7-day expirations. Although generally they will kind of keep a value, but they are going to decay pretty fast. And I think part of the problem with Facebook is it tends to have some option sellers on the short period, because I guess after a while everybody believes that it just can't really rally much or something like that. And he's buying the term that has the least, that decays much less relative, because don't forget, you've got that crazy vol skew with the earnings. So the 7-day is going to melt very fast relative to the 30-day. And what he's trying to do is trying to grab that, just the melt. He wants to grab 6 days of melt on the position. So it is a very high probability setup, I think, overall. The real problem with the trade is if something happens in Facebook prior to, because you're basically have a straddle swap on, so you're going to lose whatever premium you have long in the trade. You can lose. That's why he's trying to put a stop loss on it. In reality, it might be hard to exit the side, but anyway, I think it's still, as a setup trade, it is a much better it's a much better earnings trade, I would say, than most. And it rides some of the concepts that we use. It's just kind of a different side of the cookie, because he's trying to take that time spread in. Normally taking a time spread into earnings and then playing the earnings on the time spread is, you would probably reverse the numbers that Ophir had, and you'd lose 11 out of 12 times and you would be very happy. But his strategy, the key to the strategy is you got to close it the day of earnings or the day before. So it is a way to game. This is another thing too about option education, is you can learn to game the Greeks, and what you're doing is you're betting on a different type of you're betting on something different. You're betting on vol, but vol reversion trades. You're trying to maximize theta on some trades, things like that. So those are the it's really kind of what it is. It's a Greek bet. It's a bet on the Greeks, not necessarily on direction. So what he's saying is, I'm not really making a directional bet. I'm making a theta bet, and I'm betting on some accelerated theta. So anyway, that's the idea. But again, I like that type of trading because you've got some room.
Yeah, it's kind of like the flipping the other side of the coin of your trade, maybe the dark side of your trade if we go down that path. Because the only thing I'm nervous about is that little bit of short gamma you got there right around, because you're short that front week, and if we all know things can happen. I mean, you're not riding it through the event. I'm with you there. If you rode it through the event, I think those numbers would be probably pretty close to reverse. Those are turbulent waters, and we've advocated many times to avoid them if you can. This is another scenario. I probably want to avoid them. But we have seen things pop out, and you are going to be net short a little bit of gamma. Again, he acknowledges that's why he's got a stop loss on it. He doesn't say it's completely risk-free. But still interesting stuff. Uncle Mike, any thoughts on this one? You ever use, I know you like the occasional time spread. I think you mostly like, puts. You ever use at-the-money straddles in your time spreads?
I can't say that I have. I mean, I looked at them a lot back in the Apple days. I did look at them pretty frequently, but never really had the occasion to do this. This trade's very intriguing. The thing that I like about it is that he does have stop losses attached to it, and that He has the cautious frame of mind. With a 92% success ratio, that always makes me raise an eyebrow a little bit. Not because I think, wow, that's such a great thing, but how on earth am I going to get burned on this one when I least expect it? I still remember like 06, 07, the golden age of the Iron Condor, when I can remember just going on the road and it seemed like no matter what city I was in, everyone was just telling me how anyone who's not trading Iron Condors is just a fool, and didn't really see people, or didn't really get people saying that much a couple of years later, as we all know what happened. So I'm always concerned with the higher probability style of trades, but the fact that you have risk management and a stop loss in, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, all the heydays of the Iron Condor. I can go on that for many, many, many days about just how there was that time frame where everyone and their mother wanted naught but Iron Condors. If you try to tell them anything else, Iron Fly, Vertical, whatever, they wanted nothing to do with it. Iron Condors all the time. It seemed like we come off that tip a little bit, but there was that heyday. I think 2007, 08 to 09, that range, maybe a little later, where just, maybe a little earlier too, where just there was a 3 or 4 year period where just nothing but Iron Condors. That's all anybody wanted to talk about. Let's see, got time for a few more here. Here's one from the live chat. Arthur Smelyansky wants to know, how often is this show on? Well, this show is on every Monday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. If you do want to catch it live, you're in the live chat, so I'm guessing you do want to catch it live. That said, you can always subscribe to it in iTunes or wherever you get your podcast and get it whenever you want on your schedule. That's where the lion's share of the audience really gets it. We do the live just for the hardcore, if you guys who have fun. And we like to have fun. It makes the show a little fun for us. But yeah, most people consume it via podcast. You can get that, of course, via our website as well. Or just search for The Option Block. You can find it pretty much anywhere you find your finer podcast programs. All right, let's see. We got time for, let's do a quick one here. This is Richard D. He wrote in, I think, a couple of weeks ago. He says, Mark and the Option Crusaders. He puts in parentheses, last time I called you Option Luminaries. I'm going to keep inventing new titles until one sticks. I'm on a roll and got my questions answered last Tuesday. And I figured I'd try my luck with 2 more. I also included a third, less serious question. I don't know if we'll have time to get to all those, Richard, but we'll get to at least one here. Let's see. He says, first question, often on segments like the Odd Block or similar segments on your other shows, you talk about someone going bullish or bearish on certain contracts. For example, let's take the Tesla way out of the money puts you have mentioned. You talk about someone wanting to be long those catastrophic Tesla puts. But for each trade, there is some party taking the other side. Since there is always another party in these trades, why isn't it the inverse analysis? In this case, for example, that someone really wants to sell way out of the money Tesla puts. Thanks. Well, this is an interesting question for a couple of reasons. We talk a lot in the Odd Block about large block trades, and you're right. Sometimes there is a counterparty attached to those. Those usually go up kind of prepackaged, prearranged, and then they're kind of just printed on the floor. For the lion's share of options trades, you're just going out there buying 10 lot of at the money Tesla or whatever. Your counterparty is going to be the market maker. That's what their job is to fill you. They're the counterparty to your trade. Technically, it's OCC, but they are the buyer to every seller to every buyer. So that's what ranges the small stuff. The big stuff takes a little bit more doing. Maybe next time we have Tubby on, we'll have to pick his brain. He used to do this for a living, about how he would fill these orders and finding the counterparties and the process of actually what's called shopping the orders and going around saying to people, hey, I want to sell 25,000 of these Tesla puts. You want to buy some, and getting little pieces here and little pieces there. But it's not quite as easy as you make it out, where there's always a buyer for a seller. Sometimes there's other agendas there as well. Someone could put up 5,000, they could cross it for someone. So that means maybe it's the trading desk for a big bank or a big firm taking down those puts to keep a big customer happy. So they don't really want to buy these Tesla out of the money puts. They're just doing it because their customer wants to sell them, and guess what? They're a big customer, so they want to keep them happy. So they take these puts down, and they got to figure out some way to trade out of them. That's the trader's job. So it's not always quite as plain vanilla as you make it out, where there's always a buyer. Technically, that's true with OCC and everything else like that, but the intention is always a little bit different. We can get into this a little more when I think maybe we'll get the Tubster and pick his brain on this a little bit. Mr. Rock Lobster, you were on the floor a bit. You've seen some orders shopped in your day. What do you have to say about this this buyer for every seller old saw?
That's, I think, one of the biggest questions we have with new clients is, who buys these? Who sells these? Who does this? But if you're a big enough customer, Susquehanna or Morgan or somebody will find a way to take the other side for you. So if you're going to pay them $2 a contract in commissions, they'll find a way. So But yes, in general, it is somebody is just somebody is creating the order flow. But a lot of firms, it's their job to take the other side of that order flow. So that's how you find a buyer for every seller. So it could very well be somebody wants to sell these, but you're locking up a lot of capital for a year and a half to make 50 cents. So it would be an interesting, maybe some green enthusiast thinks this is free money and somebody's making them happy.
No, it's not 50 cents, sir. It's $1.10. I'll thank you to be accurate.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. That's good money, sir. Some people can't afford to scoff at $1.10 like you, sir. You can't all be rich folks living on the coast eating lobster every meal out there, scoffing at $1.10. That's good money for some people, sir.
$1.10 is a lot of margin for a year and a half.
All right. Good questions, everybody. That's all the time we got. We got to keep on rolling to our final segment. It's time for Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we break down what we're watching for the rest of this week. Let's kick things off with the important stuff, which is, of course, who's winning, trolls, leprechauns. Actually, unicorns kind of sneaking in there. So leprechauns just up 29%, 28%, saying unicorns. The rest of you clearly dumbfounded and confused. Another hour or so left on that pressing poll before we wrap that up. Looking ahead to the real stuff this week, of course, we do have the big earnings. We have Apple popping off tomorrow. Still about a third of you saying $6 is cheap. You agree, disagree? Hit it up at Options over there on Twitter. You can make your voice heard before the number. I'm sure we'll have something in store for Tesla coming up on Wednesday as well. We got a lot of big names still popping off this week. We've got, I'm looking at some others here. It's a ton. Sprint, Sony, you name it, Humana, all kinds of names. So no matter what area of the space you're into, there's something for you. Mr. Rock Lobster choosing other questions he wants to answer. We'll get to all that stuff, Mr. Rock Lobster. Meanwhile, though, we got to talk about what we're watching for this week. So what are you watching the rest of this week, sir?
Obviously Apple, and I'm really wondering, because this Costco thing exploded today, if everybody's kind of coming to their senses and realizing how exactly is Costco going to compete, or Amazon, or whatever, Amazon and Whole Foods going to compete head on head with Costco. Everybody likes Costco. So anyway, it would be such a vastly I don't even I guess. But another thing you think, the more and more real Amazon gets as far as brick and mortar, this and that. I mean, all those margins and all that magical growth and stuff seems to kind of disappear. It's not that Amazon people love it and it's a great product. It's just what's the whole enchilada worth. So it looks like maybe people are starting to take a look at that. So we will see. We will see how far that goes. I think unless Apple blows it out of the water for earnings, I think tech slows down for a little while. Start looking for other stuff, and we could see another little bit lower vol, because apparently I guess all the volatility is in the White House and not in the market. So maybe this is just a new thing.
Yeah, that's where everything is.
It's a new thing, right? There really wasn't volatility in the Obama White House, but there was a lot of vol in the market his 8 years in the office. Now all the vol is in the White House and none of it's in the market. So who knew?
Yeah, who knew? Apparently he's into options because Anthony Scaramucci follows us on Twitter. So he's getting all of our updates right now, reading them right now as we're doing the show. So hopefully he's following along. Maybe he voted in our unicorns versus trolls versus leprechauns debate. Of course, we got non-farms later this week as well. A lot of stuff to focus on. Mr. Uncle Mike, what say you, sir?
Nothing more to add than what Andrew had already said. Maybe that's like a good question we can ask the president. Where do you stand, trolls, unicorns, or leprechauns? How do you feel? Be curious. That would be this administration's new boxers or briefs question. Maybe that's what we should start off on this exact show. But no, just watching what we typically watch, and just seeing what these earnings actually might do something to this market.
All right, everybody. That music means we're done. Before we go, let's jump around the horn really quick. Mr. Rock Lobster, we'll start with you. What the heck are you guys up to in the pit?
our Juice for Free class, Trading Gamma. Everybody liked it. It will be out for sale shortly if you weren't able to attend, but you want to learn all kinds of stuff. We talk about, it's funny, just like Ofer's thing here, but ratio calendars, ratio double calendars, using the vol products against long gamma, all kinds of stuff to help you get some contracts for no theta. So anyway.
There you go. I like it. Juice for free. I think your next webinar, as we discussed today, clearly is going to be how to buy earnings straddle swaps for a small premium as opposed to free. There you go. Small premium outlay for small straddle swaps. Get that over there, optionpit.com to learn more. And follow him over there on Twitter while you're there, at OptionBall. Give the man some love. He doesn't tweet a lot, but every once in a while he'll tweet a little nugget, a pearl of wisdom. He'll vote on leprechauns versus unicorns, all kinds of fun stuff. So follow him over there. I'd say the same for Uncle Mike, but he doesn't play on Twitter. He has a handle, never uses it. Uncle Mike, aside from your lack of social media savvy, what else is cooking in the land of RCM Wealth Advisors?
Well, the war on ticket charges is going well, but I want to talk to you guys about not just ticket charges, but if you're looking for an investment advisor, someone who can work with you, someone to possibly manage some money who's not afraid of the word volatility skew. If you're interested in such a thing, please give me a call. I would love to work with you. If you have as little as a couple $100 a month, even $100 a month, that's all we really need to get something going. I can give you shockingly, lots of attention if you are interested in such a relationship. Give me a call at 312-212-3531 or shoot me an email at mtosaw@rcmfs.com.
Just think of how many Tesla catastrophe puts you could buy with $100 a month, Uncle Mike.
You go.
Actually, you could buy one. You could afford to buy a little bit less than one. So we'll see.
Will you go halvesies with me on it?
Okay, I'll kick in the extra. We got to go like $1.12 or something to get a full round one lot. There you go. Hit up Uncle Mike if you want to fight back on some ticket charges, or if you want to perhaps have someone roll your puts for you, including your crazy catastrophe puts, so you don't have to. M2saw at rcmfs.com to learn more. And on behalf of Uncle Mike and the Rock Lobster and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there. You know the drill: downloading, streaming, subscribing, everything you do, including sending in such great questions. Keep them coming. You guys really throw us for a loop, which is fun. We like that. Keep doing that. And we'll see you next week for more. Actually, we'll see you on Thursday for more of the Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.